Here we are together again. A couple moments, get what you need for our practice today together. Hello, I'm aLex. I'm so happy to be here with you as usual on Sundays, Eastern Time in the US, 10 a.m. This is Sun and Moon Yoga Studios YouTube portal. Thanks for being here. Today, I'm thinking of how we feel our own emotions, our own feelings, how we know separate those from others, and how we give those center stage. And that is a part of what we can learn and grow in as we practice. I'm going to start with a poem from this book, The Poetry of Impermanence, Mindfulness and Joy, edited by my friend John Brehm. A lovely collection, 3 sections of poems through the ages of the themes of impermanence, mindfulness, and joy. So you'll want to have what you need around you to be comfortable for movement, to be uninterrupted as much as possible, for stillness after that. We'll be moving on the floor. I'll demonstrate a little bit on the ground, but then I'll come back up to sitting. So glad you're here with me. So glad you made this time for yourself. Our practice, if we're interested in reducing suffering, we all experience suffering in some way, but if we're interested in freedom, if we're interested in the truth for ourselves and how we're connected to others, and these are all just part of our humanity, most of us need to learn from each other and practice. We need each other's support and witnessing, even as we are sort of separated, as I am here in my space and your space there. So let me read this poem that I just love. There are many, many things about it that might jump out to you. No pun intended, because the word jump is in here, I think. Maybe not, maybe I'm assuming that. You'll see why in a moment. Alrighty. So let me just say that as we're on the ground, we'll be on our backs. You can have your knees bent, but you want enough padding to be comfortable for a few minutes there as we move, slightly moving side to side from our back. This poem is written by Chuang, who lived 369 to 286 before the Christian era. And it's called The Joy of Fishes. Chuang and Hui were crossing the Hao River by the dam. Chuang said, "See how free the fishes leap and dart in their happiness?" Hui replied, "Since you are not a fish, how do you know what makes the fishes happy?" Chuang said, "Since you are not I, how can you possibly know that I do not know what makes fishes happy?" We argued, if I, not being you, cannot know what you know, it follows that, not being a fish, you cannot know what they know. Chuang said, "Wait a minute, let's get back to the original question. What you asked me was, how do you know what makes fishes happy? From the terms of your question, you evidently know what I know. You evidently know I know what makes fishes happy. I know the joy of fishes in the river through my own joy as I go walking along the same river. I know of the joy of the fishes in the river through my own joy as I go walking along the same river." So there's a little play of logic there, debate, and then getting down to the essential, what was the question, and what is my answer? So let's lie down on the ground. If you choose, you can do this from a seated position. So just get yourself grounded with the same cues that I'll use from being on the ground. Your knees can be bent, as I mentioned earlier. I'll make sure in the video. So let's just arrive on our backs here, sensing the ground, sensing the temperature around us. Limit the noise around me. I hope you can hear me well. And just find out how you know your own joy, how you know the ground is here underneath you. Especially when we lay so much of our body down on the ground. You can feel, just not just know in your brain, but feel through the body that's connected to the wiring of the nervous system. You can feel how body recognizing ground support, that solidity, starts to let go, starts to release the muscularity that needs to be in place to hold us upright. And if you're sitting, whether with some support to your back or not, you can start to let go and not worry too much about your posture yet or at all during this practice, and just let yourself flow downward, even as you're sitting upright, if that makes sense. And so all the parts above us of the ground, so in my positioning, the legs are a little above, but I've got my knees leaning against each other, and I can feel that the legs don't need to hold on quite as much, or the engagement of muscle lessens. Start to fold in awareness, attention, and consciousness of your own breath. I corrected myself there, as I use the term awareness as the most broad, the parallel to God or the absolute, that has no attributes, but simply it is knowing and it is aware. No time definitions, no spatial definitions or limits. But consciousness is our own lens. It's very, very much like awareness, but we can make it go smaller, we can let it get bigger, we can keep it big while we zoom in small, a little different than what we can do with the camera. While I'm chattering away, I hope you've stayed with the sensations of your body. I hope you're hearing me clearly. I'm trying to talk loudly for some reason. When I'm farther from the laptop, the sound isn't as good. Breath. And notice your own sound observation, your consciousness of the sounds around you. How the out here arrives in here, the out there arrives in here. So these elements of ground, breath, sound and space around, when we bring our attention to these, so much helps us to get into that framework of presence. We can choose with our consciousness different frameworks. And one of the things I'm finding bringing to the forefront today is how, as we come more and more present, and even as we're including some of the externals, how we can get more connected to, more receiving of what the accurate feelings within us, the feelings in terms of emotions, as well as physical sensations, these felt senses. And we do that a lot through attending through the body. So now let's bring our arms upward. Bend your left elbow to hold your right, and then place your right hand somehow on your left, holding your left elbow. Keep the elbows upward toward the sky, but shoulders can relax down for now. Then let the left elbow lift and pull the elbows to the right. And then back to center. So keeping the elbows, the upper arms perpendicular to the ground, and we sort of lift the one shoulder, the left shoulder, and move away from that toward the right, and the rectangle window collapses to more of a parallelogram and comes back and rests in place, lowering the shoulder blade, and then again lifting left upper arm so the elbow goes more toward the ceiling, already changing the window. And for now, I'm not really letting my head go with the movement of the arms, this arm window, the frame of arms. But you could let your head go then. You don't have to pull far, just keep it light and fun and full of wonder, curiosity. If you run up against discomfort of any sort, try to tend to that. Do what you need to stay less of pain or discomfort. There can be an intensity that can feel good, but there's no need to keep going where it does not feel good. So if you haven't yet, let your head roll with the window going to the right. Knees separate. Your legs could be long or bent. Actually, bent is better. Bent is better, allows us a little more freedom. Okay, let's let it go. It's really good to take a pause here. Perhaps let the legs go long here or rest the knees against each other. And if you were doing this up in space through sitting, and I'm going to change to sitting, but you can stay wherever you are for the movement. If you, what was I saying? Wherever you are, sitting or lying down, let yourself relax now. Relax more fully. And notice what's here. In the stopping is in the contrast to the movement, and the movement ushered in something different now. And now let's go back to the same movement, same direction. So left hand holds on to the right elbow, then the right hand finds the left elbow. And this window, if you're sitting, it's parallel to the ground. If you're on your back, it's perpendicular to the ground. And now as you move the whole window to the right, moving it to the right, let your head go with that for a few times, going slow. And as you return, really return all the way. As you go to the right, just sort of land there. And of course, we're breathing with this movement as well. And this time, as you take the window to the right, don't let the head move. Hold the head steady. This is a Feldenkrais lesson. I just practiced this week from a YouTube video by David Zumot. He's got a second part of his last name, starts with a B. Wonderful guide in these movement practices. So So the head is not going with the arms and shoulders, maybe even moving in the opposite direction. The eyes too, the eyes could be going opposite. Good, and then let everything go in the same direction. Head, even eyes, open or closed, can roll farther right as the arms and shoulder girdle goes to the right. Neck. And let it go. Just a little bit of movement. But you may notice quite large sensations, or sensations can become quite obvious and well defined. So notice the words, the descriptions you give to the experience that you're having now. Notice your breathing and how that's experienced in contrast to how it was a few minutes ago before we did any of this practice. And now let's take the same movement. Left arm bends, elbow, find the elbow. Right hand finds the left elbow. And from either lying down or sitting, take the elbows now to the left, collapsing the rectangle into a parallelogram, bringing up memories of geometry class. Ooh, and this side could feel quite different. Let the head go with, or maybe a little, or just or a lot. The eyes might go a little or a lot. All these little differences, we could spend an hour parsing these out, as I did with David in the YouTube video. I'll put a link to that in the notes. And now let the head and eyes move opposite. And in this movement, we're going into the position, coming back. As we come back, pause there. And as we go, find that farthest point we move to, pause there. Breathing might be coordinating with. The side could feel so different than our side. Now let the movement, head, eyes, arms, shoulders go together. And then let's let it go side to side with just a brief pause in the middle. We come through center. Notice what you're noticing through the spine, the hips, the legs, the feet. Sometimes at first it might be, I'm not noticing anything, and that's okay. I'm going to let my head go opposite, head and eyes go opposite now. I'm not pausing in between there. Bring that pause, and then everything with, together. There could be some groans happening. All right, come back to center. Release your arms down. Rest. Take note. You're doing that probably anyway. The mind is doing that. Always reporting like a sportscaster, play by play. But sometimes not as much as other times. And sometimes there's even pauses in the reporting. But to notice what it is you're reporting to yourself. So valuable to stretch that out so that we can more accurately express what we are feeling and what we need and what our requests might be based on those. It really is a game changer when we can know our own joy and whatever other many infinite actually experiences are happening. So we'll slide now to the meditation portion with minimal ado. I'm going to come up a little higher under my pelvis And if you're lying down, you might stay there for your meditation. You might like to stay there, or you might come up to sitting, but do it gently. Make the shift gently. If you're sitting, you might want to lie down for the stillness part of this program, of our practice. Settle. Arrive again. Once again, thank you for joining me. Your being there is so much a part of this. I might even do this by myself. I would do it by myself anyway, but I would offer this even if nobody showed up. It's so important to me. There's a story I could share about that. Maybe I'll do that at the end. So let's begin for about 8 minutes. I'll guide lightly, and then we'll have prolonged periods of silence. You might notice how the bell, this contrasting sound to our atmosphere, a pleasing sound, I think, a resonant sound. If it was an unpleasing sound, it also might bring us right here. So in sitting and in whatever posture you've chosen, laying down on your side, it's also helpful to just sense that downward pull of gravity that holds us right here and releasing into it. Then you might also notice its counterbalance of levity, of buoyancy. Even if you're lying down and so much of you is held by gravity, you can kind of feel the parts that are up toward the sky, parts of the body that can soften and allow the opposing force, which is real. Which is real. You can feel it. Science tells us about it. And if you're upright, you can use that force of gravity, but it's opposing upward lift to really find where it's more and more effortless to be upright. Perhaps you're sensing how the body is a little bit more loose and integrated, organized, lightly now than before the practice, the movement, mini movement. And if there's anything arising that's grabbing your attention, some of those visitors dissolve easily into themselves or wherever, or just go away, like the tightness I just felt in my belly. As I just gave it a glance of attention, it dissolved. Some are more persistent, as if knocking on the door, wanting our attention. And what you might find is that it's more helpful to give them a bit of attention, But let them know, just sort of recognize, hey, I hear you knocking. I see you. Give them a few seconds, maybe even a breath or two of true attention. Say, for now, let's table this. Come back in about a half hour or another time. I'll give you my attention then. Usually it is something important. Could be a physical pain, could be a emotional puzzle. And then you're left with just being here, breathing, being breathed. Let what comes come. Let what goes go. See what remains. Noticing your own attention that is so much like boundless awareness. It is boundless awareness. Clear, in a sense, warm, kind. Those are already attributes, but my experience is it has these. It's boundless, it's formless, it's timeless, but it has this quality of allowing everything that is to be as it is. A few more breaths together in this stillness, this beingness. Thank you for joining me for this practice. perhaps take a few moments before transitioning to just, again, make note, even saying out loud just a few words or gestures describing, expressing what you feel right now. This is what we can work with. Others' expressions, be they kind or not kind, we don't have really any power over those. We can inquire into them, ask the person to help us understand. But our own, we can become more clear about. The more clear we are, the more we can tend to what our own needs are. And know what we need to do, what our dharma is, what our path is, what our job is in this world. So if you have a moment, before I share the story, I'd love to hear when you're here, whether you're here with me in the same time as some of you are. You could leave me a chat, or later you can, right after this ends, if you refresh the page, I believe the video is already posted on YouTube, and then you can leave comments below. I'd love to hear your feedback, and that would help me. Your expressing what your experiences can help me tailor what I share week to week. So if no one shows up, so in the story is, truly, that there were Zen monks that came over to the West Coast from Japan in the, I think maybe starting in the 50s, but in the 60s, as apparently the interest in Zen was waning in Japan. And they came over to see if they could evangelize it here in the United States. And one of my teachers' teachers was one of the women, they called them, I don't know, they had a name for them, anyway, her name, she was living in the Bay Area in San Francisco, and she was taught to be a teacher, to meditate and Zen practices. And she offered, when she was ready to teach, she offered her home, a space in her home. She'd set up every week, she got the word out, and she'd set up like 10 spots to sit. And I think it was for a year, no one showed up. For a year, she sat there each week, offering a teaching, the practice. And later she did start to have some students. But what she said, that what she would remember when she's sitting, or maybe her teacher kept her encouraging her, saying, when you sit with the whole lineage, maybe back in time, but maybe with everyone who is during that time on the planet practicing. So whether we feel alone, we actually are not, but it is also really helpful to know that we are together. It's like that Insight Timer, the app. It lets you know, you can see where in the world someone else is meditating when you're on it. It's helpful, right? Thank you so much. Check out sunandmoonstudio.com, see what we're offering. And I know so many of you regularly join me, and that means so much. Lisa, Nancy, and Catherine, Mary Beth, Kevin, Kamalesh, thank you for being there with me. Ciao, ciao, and see you next time. The off button.